Hello and welcome to a new Ostrich video, and today I'm going to talk about icing conditions. Which types of icing exist, when do they occur, what are the dangers, and how can we protect us from these dangers. And in this video I will focus on general aviation only because the icing procedures in airline travel are a little bit different. So, generally speaking, we need two factors for icing conditions to occur. The first one are temperatures at or below freezing, and the second one is visible moisture. So that means clouds, mist, precipitation, and so on. To give you an example, so if you're flying through a cloud and it's minus 3 degrees centigrade outside, so you have to expect icing conditions. Now, we have basically two different types of icing. The first one is Rime ice, and that is a more or less small ice crystals that creating a porous layer of ice on your aircraft. And this is like when you go out in the morning and everything is covered with ice crystals, or the ice crystals that form inside the fridge seemingly out of nowhere. And Rime ice usually forms in stable layer and when the temperature is between 0 and minus 15 degrees centigrade. Below minus 15 degrees, little water droplets are usually already frozen into crystals and therefore can't adhere to your aircraft, but be aware that Rimers can form up to minus 40 degrees centigrade. If it's colder, icing usually doesn't occur. And the second and more dangerous form of icing is so-called clear icing, and that's a solid layer of clear ice on your aircraft that also adheres very strongly to your aircraft, and it's also usually harder to spot than Rime ice. Now, clear ice forms when we are in turbulent air between 0 and minus 15 degrees, like you would find on the bottom of a storm cloud. And if you have turbulent air between minus 15 degrees and minus 40 degrees, it's usually Rime ice that forms. And of course, in such a situation, you can have a combination of both icing forms as well. And the most dangerous way of clear icing is due to freezing rain, as this builds up very quickly a dangerous amount of clear ice on your aircraft, and it covers the whole aircraft. And freezing rain occurs when we have higher temperatures aloft, so that the rain forms in a liquid form and then it falls through an area where the temperatures are below freezing. And then when the super cool droplets hit your aircraft, they freeze instantaneously. If we have snow as precipitation, if it's very cold, like for example minus 15 degrees centigrade, we don't have to worry, as cold snow is dry and therefore can't adhere to your aircraft. And if it's snow and the temperatures are close to the freezing point, like minus 2 degrees, the snow is usually wet and therefore icing can occur. Now, we briefly discussed when icing can occur, so let's talk about where it can happen and which are the consequences for our aircraft. So icing first can form at our pitot tube, our sensors, or our antennas, what would give us a wrong instrument rating or would fail the instruments completely, and the same is true for the radios if the ice builds up on the antennas. If our aircraft has a carburetor, also the carburetor icing can occur, and that would mean that our engine loses power as more and more ice hinders the fuel-air mixture to get into the cylinders. It's basically like a throttling back. And it also can happen that the throttle gets stuck as a choke valve that regulates the air-fuel mixture going towards the cylinders gets stuck due to icing. Now, the last form of icing is called structural icing, and it adheres to the outer structure of our aircraft. It can form on the windshield, hindering our visibility. It can form on the propellers and the leading edges of our wings or the tail assembly. And when it forms there, it alters the aerodynamic profile of these surfaces to our disadvantage. And in case of the propeller, that means that its ability to generate forward thrust gets reduced, and in case of the leading edges, it means that the drag gets increased, our fuel burn will increase, as well as our stall speed, and at the same time our lift and our maneuverability gets reduced, and that's definitely a situation you don't want to be in. As we see, icing can have really nasty consequences for us, so how can we avoid all these nasty effects? And the best way always is don't get into icing conditions in the first place, get a good weather briefing and plan around icing conditions wherever it's possible. If freezing rain is forecasted and you can't fly around this area where it's forecasted, you have basically two options: you either stay at home or you take the train. Now, if you have to really fly into icing conditions, you have to make sure that your aircraft is equipped for the job. Like most GI aircraft, like our Piper Comanche here for example, they have only a pitot heat and a carburetor heat, so we would have no chance to avoid structural icing or get rid of the ice, and therefore it would be very suicidal to fly in icing conditions with it. Our GI aircraft, usually the bigger ones, the two-engine ones, are equipped with de-icing or anti-icing equipment, and therefore we could deal with the ice build-up on our wings and so forth. Therefore it's fine. So de-icing equipment is designed to remove ice mid-flight, while anti-icing is designed to avoid ice forming on our aircraft in the first place. So de-icing is usually done by so-called pneumatic boots, as you can see a picture here. And this is basically, you have the leading edge is made of rubber, and underneath it's balloons, and if you want to de-ice the aircraft, the balloons get inflated, and therefore the leading edge expands to these little riplets, and this expansion of the leading edge will break off the ice here. And this form from anti-icing we have is that we usually have heated surfaces on the leading edges or the windshield, and in general aviation this heating is usually done electrical. Systems that using bleed air are usually found in larger aircraft like our Boeing 737 or something like this. And now you have also, in usually more modern aircraft, you have the option of chemically anti-icing. So you have the surfaces of your leading edge is made out of a porous material, so you can pump de-icing fluids or anti-icing fluids through it, and they sweep out through this little pores and prevent the icing build-up. Now lastly, there's one little caveat regarding carburetor icing. In a carburetor, the air gets tunneled through a narrow gap, and that speeds up the air, that lowers the pressure and therefore sucks the fuel towards the engine, and also mixing it with the air at the same time, so pretty ingenious. But it also lowers the air temperature significantly, and therefore if the air is humid enough, carburetor icing can occur up to plus 25 degrees centigrade, and this is basically a lovely summer's day and not winter conditions where you would expect icing conditions, so just keep this in mind. And that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, I hope you liked it, and as always, if you have questions, if you have comments, let me know in the section below, and all that's left to say now is thanks for watching and see you at the next time. Bye bye.